I quit collecting Pokemon cards a year ago to chase sports cards instead. But which hobby is actually better? But first, welcome back everybody, I'm the Rich Nobody and I hope y'all are having a blessed day today. Now, I just want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Yes, I have a pimple the size of Nebraska on my face. Let's not acknowledge that for the rest of this video, let's just continue talking about Pokemon cards and sports cards. So I wanted to make this video mainly because it's been a while since I've collected Pokemon cards, and I've been really hot into collecting baseball cards, and I really just wanted to sit down and think to myself, which hobby has actually been more fun for me so far? And if you're in either of the two hobbies and you're thinking about going to the other one, this video is also for you, so if you're curious, let's get started. Now, if you're just one of those people that likes to collect for fun, this video may not necessarily be for you. You can keep watching just in case you're curious, but basically I'm going to be focusing on value. Now, I say value, but we're really not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that because obviously, you know, sports cards can hold millions of dollars of value while Pokemon is currently in, you know, like it's kind of getting there, especially with the vintage stuff, but it's not too crazy just yet. But I mainly wanted to focus on the joy of the chase for sure, because I know for sports cards, some of those chase cards can be really hard to pull, when in Pokemon, if you get, you know, just a couple of boxes, you have a pretty high chance of pulling your chase card. But then I also wanted to talk about just like the cultural significance of the chases in these sets. So we'll get started with Pokemon. First off, Pokemon is a TCG game, so there's actually a game embedded in the Pokemon that you collect in these cards. That also adds an entirely different niche of collectors who also like to play the TCG instead of just the people that like to collect the cards because they collect the cards. You can't do that with sports cards. And I've got a list pulled up here. The rarities that are inside of Pokemon, at least just the main ones that we're going to be focusing on, is the commons, the uncommons, the rares, the reverse holos, the holos. We got the illustration rares, the EX cards, the EX full arts, and the EX special illustration rares. Now, for some of the newer sets and some of the older sets, there were different rarities that were in those. Like I remember the breaks from the EX era. We have the monochrome cards. I can't remember what they're called now, but like we have the Reshiram, the Zekrom, and the Victini ones. I can't remember what those rarities are for, but those are pretty new and stuff, so we're not going to focus too much on those. These are just the bare bone rarities. So for Pokemon, you can basically count all the rarities on like 1.5 hands. When we get to sports cards, you'll see why that is seemingly a low number, because in sports cards there are a lot more rarities than Pokemon. But another big thing that Pokemon has aside from sports cards is that Pokemon are imaginary characters. They're not real. So let's just say an outsider is looking in on the hobby of Pokemon, looking at people collecting cards. They might get a little confused on why you're so dead set on collecting cards that are made up of characters that don't actually exist in real life. They might think that's a little strange, because what kind of value is even in these cards if these aren't real things that you're collecting? But obviously, as a Pokemon collector myself, I understand why I'm collecting imaginary characters, because, you know, Pokemon itself as a brand has cemented itself in many different areas, like especially video games and whatnot.
Like no other.
Hello.
Find out your welcome offer.
How long do I have?
There's nothing like platinum.
Can I get like 20 minutes? I think people more or less collect Pokemon for the cultural significance that the brand has on the world. It's not necessarily anything other than that, I would say. Now, I will pause here. Pokemon collector to Pokemon collector, don't think that I'm downplaying collecting Pokemon just because they're imaginary characters. Again, I was collecting Pokemon for almost 9 years, you know, so I was deep in the trenches of this franchise, and I have thousands and thousands of dollars of Pokemon just stored around my house, you know. So trust me when I say I'm not downplaying Pokemon by any means. I'm just stating the facts compared to sports cards for this video. But now moving on to actually obtaining these Pokemon cards, Pokemon has a couple of different areas where you can actually get these cards. Now, of course, there's, you know, the off cases of people buying singles and lots and stuff like that on secondary markets, but we're talking about what Pokemon sells as sealed product specifically, and that's mainly collection boxes. We've got ETBs, we've got the premium collection boxes, we got booster boxes, we have those booster bundles now, and I think we also have the blisters and the blister packs as well. And I think that's all of them. You could let me know down in the comments if I'm missing any, but as of that, again, that's maybe 2 hands worth of sealed product that you can actually purchase of Pokemon containing Pokemon cards. Sports cards have a lot more, and you'll see later, but the prices for these boxes vary quite drastically, especially if you're taking into consideration the secondary market. But the collection boxes for retail, normally those are like 25 to 50, I think is what the norm is. The ETBs, I think, retail at 60 now. I remember when those used to be 40, by the way. Goodness gracious me. The premium collection boxes, I don't think you can buy those in retail. I could be wrong. I've never actually seen Pokemon product in the wild for a long time, so you can correct me if I'm wrong there. And then of course we have booster boxes, which you cannot buy those in retail, but we got tons and tons of variety when it comes to the pricing on those, because we have some from a few years ago going for thousands of dollars, and then we have the ones in the most recent era going for like 200 to 250, something ridiculous like that. The booster bundles are, I think, around like 30 to 40. Again, I haven't seen this stuff in the wild like in a very long time, so I can't tell you what the current retail prices are of those, but they're relatively affordable, I would say. And then the blisters, those are just regular pack prices. They're usually around $5 a pack in retail, and the blisters range from like 10 to 20 depending on how many packs are in the blisters, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much all of the areas that you can buy Pokemon sealed in the wild. But the last thing I want to touch on with Pokemon is the actual risk factor when it comes to opening up this product and trying to pull that chase card. So with Pokemon, believe it or not, I'm categorizing this as a low risk, high reward type of game here that you're playing. And what I mean by that is, from like pack ratio to hit ratio, you're very likely to get a hit that you're satisfied with if you just open up a small number of packs. To be completely honest with you, the hit rate in Pokemon is a lot better than what it used to be, of course. But for a lot of the more common sets, the more like recent ones, like let's just take Phantasmal Flames for example, because we have the big Charizard, the Mega Charizard EX Special Illustration Rare. I think that thing goes for, I think it's still going for about $1,000 on the secondary market. I could be, again, wrong on that, but it's definitely in the high hundreds range, low thousands range. But to actually pull that card, honestly, I think you really only need to open like around 2 booster boxes worth. I don't think they're that hard to pull. So, this is going to be one of those cases where you can let me know if I'm wrong or not, because I haven't opened any Phantasmal Flames. Believe it or not, I haven't opened up any sealed Pokemon product since Journey Together came out, because I genuinely have not been able to find anything at a good price. So I'm a little lost in the sauce on the hit rates, but from how many Mega Charizards that I've seen on the secondary market, I can't imagine they're too hard to pull. So that's why I'm saying that it's a low risk, because you're not spending that much on sealed packs, but it's a high reward, because if you pull that Charizard, boom, you've just made, $1,000 on maybe $100 to $200 of packs. You know what I'm saying? But now here's where the fun part comes in for me. We're going to talk about the details behind sports cards and what you can actually get when you open up packs. Now, if you were to ask me a year ago what you could get out of opening up baseball cards, I would tell you, you just get any player that is in the pack. You're not going to get anything special in there, because I had no idea what kind of parallels and foils and chromes and all these other kinds of things that you could actually get out of these sports card products. But first off, I'll preface that sports cards are not a game. There's no game embedded in these. These are genuinely just for collecting purposes only. But now if we jump to the rarities, we've got, this is just a list that I've made here, but we have base, we've got foil, we've got the themed inserts, we've got the numbered foils, we've got short prints, we've got super short prints, we've got one of ones, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. And we've got, so those are all just the cardboard parallels. We've got chrome cards, which are like a thicker card stock, I would say, and they're glossy, and chrome has all of those kinds of rarities, and even more so than that, because they have all these different kinds of foil patterns that go into the different boxes and all that stuff. So when it comes to rarities in sports cards, there's gotta be a minimum of like 50 that transfer from set to set, like they don't change at all. And then they'll have parallels on top of that for new parallels that they're testing or anything like that. Like there are so many different kinds of parallels in sports cards, it's extremely hard to keep track of all of them. But there's also other cards that you can pull out of sports card packs, and these are where I think like the real juice starts to come out of sports cards. And those are patch cards, relics, and autos. Autos, of course, being short for autographs. Now, you're probably looking at me because, you know, you're probably a Pokemon collector given the history of this channel, and you're like, patches, what are those? Relics, what are those? So, patches are where the card company will print a card and they will put a piece of the player's jersey inside of the card, and those are considered patch cards within the community. And those are pretty sought after, especially if it's a good player. Like if we take Shohei Ohtani, for example, if you get a patch card of Shohei Ohtani, that's like $200 right there or something crazy like that. And then relics are slightly different. These are mainly like bat relics. Now, if we're talking, you know, baseball here, because again, that's the sport that I know the most, we'll be using that for any sort of example. Relics mainly define bat relics. So again, when the card company will print out the cards, they'll put a piece of the player's bat inside of the card. Again, if you get a good player like Shohei Ohtani and you get a bat relic, that is again tons of money, like $100-$200 worth. And then of course autographs, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. If you pull an autograph of a famous player or even just a good player that's on the come up, you know, autographs are going to hold value no matter what, even if it's not on a sports card. So being able to pull autographs out of a card box, like that's pretty special. Now, another thing that I think sports cards hold over Pokemon is that these are real players behind these cards with real stats and uncertain futures. With Pokemon, you can basically guarantee that every card that is like considered a chase, those cards are going to go up in value no matter what for the foreseeable future, unless the entire company collapses. With sports cards, it's much more of a gamble, because if you pull a really good player as of right now, like say we got Shohei Ohtani, and say we pull an autograph of him, but then, you know, he's currently at the top of the league, but say he breaks his leg tomorrow, or he like gets into a car accident, he's never able to play again. Like his potential of becoming like one of the best players there ever was just completely dropped significantly. And I feel like that would also go into the value of his sports cards. They would end up dropping in value. But the same goes for, like, say you got someone who's in the minor leagues and you pull his autograph on like a prospect card or something like that. If he ends up becoming, you know, an all-star player, you know, Hall of Fame worthy, that early prospect autograph is going to increase in value tenfold, because that is a card from early in that player's career, and it's got his autograph on there. So people are going to really be looking for those things when these players become all-stars. And just to run through them really quickly, for sports cards, we mainly get the sealed products inside of retail and outside of retail. We got blasters, we got megas, we've got hobbies, we got jumbos, we got collection boxes, and then we've got the rich people boxes. But honestly, I'm going to save those for another video, because those boxes are literally thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So that's already basically out of a lot of people's price ranges, so we're just not going to touch on those very much. But you're probably sitting there as a Pokemon collector and you just heard me say all those words and you're like, blasters, megas, jumbos, hobbies? What are you talking about? Well, I won't get into the nitty gritty exactly, but the blasters are basically the lowest end product that you can get out of retail. They're pretty much the cheapest. If you get the regular cardstock cards in the blasters, they're like $30. And if you get the chrome cards in retail, they're like $40 or something like that. Very cheap. The megas usually go for around 50 or so. And if it's chrome, it's 60. The hobbies range from like 110 to $300. The jumbos go from like 500 to 700. The collection boxes again are right around about $50. But here's where I think that sports cards gets really fun, especially as a gambling addict myself. I've categorized this hobby as a high risk but uber mega super duper high reward. Because as I just said, if you pull a card of a famous player and, you know, they break their leg or get into a car accident, their cards drop in value. Can't do nothing about it. That's the high risk. You know, say you spend $1,000 on a Shohei Ohtani autograph, and then again he gets into a car accident, never plays again, and that card drops to $300. You know, you lost $700 on that. But if you buy a $20 prospect autograph and they end up becoming an all-star Hall of Famer, greatest player ever, that card is now, instead of $20, more like $15,000. Like, the price jumps on these can be absolutely insane if you get the right players. But again, given that these are real people behind these cards, anything can happen. You know, life happens. Sometimes people just get career-ending injuries or, you know, life-ending injuries, stuff like that. Like, it's completely random, you know, so it's a really big gamble for sports cards. But again, if they end up getting through their full career and do the best that anyone has ever seen, the payoff is massive. But now, I said earlier that I would come back to one of ones. Now let's just pause here for a second. So Pokemon does not have any serialized cards in any of their sets, and by serialized, if you don't know what that means that the card company prints only a certain amount of that card and that's it. They don't print anymore. So if you get a one of one, those exist. The card company only printed one of those cards. That is it. That is done. If you happen to pull a one of one, the payoff on those, if you get a good player's one of one, is massive. I've seen one of ones go on the secondary market for hundreds of thousands of dollars if it's an all-star player. Even just the regular players that are in the league right now, their one of ones go for tens of thousands, or just regular thousands, you know, but still, thousands of dollars is a lot of money. That could be life-changing money for some people. But my key takeaways here, and I'm gonna say it, sports cards, I believe, are better than Pokemon cards, and that's because, you know, pulling a rare card out of Pokemon is nice, but so many other people can get that card after you and before you. It's like, you know, there's thousands of those things out there. But if you get into sports cards and you pull a really rare card, say it's numbered to only like 50 of a great baseball player, like there's only 50 of those. You're never going to see 51 of those on the market, that's for sure. You're only going to see 50 of those. So that holds a lot more value to me because, again, I'm greedy, I'm a gambler, and if I can have something that someone else can't have, it's a good day for me. Now, of course, I'm speaking solely on the collecting level of things. I'm not going to take some homeless guy's water and be like, haha, I got water and you don't, you know, and I'm not that stupid. But anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If you want to get into sports cards and you've been into Pokemon, let me know down in the comments. If you need any advice, let me know, because again, I've only been doing this for about a year, still pretty new into it, but I'm having a whole lot of fun. And if you're into sports cards and you're watching this video and you want to get into Pokemon, I still have a lot of knowledge on that. So again, if you want to just let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you need any questions answered, just let me know and I can do my best to answer everybody's questions. Other than that, hope y'all are having a great day. Thanks for watching. If you stuck around this long, drop a like, subscribe, and I don't even know what the next video is going to be, but we'll see y'all in there.